Democrats are beginning to panic over the current state of the race in the key swing state of Wisconsin. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Democrats are beginning to panic about Wisconsin. Yeah, that's right. Despite everyone claiming that Harris is up by 50 points and she's going to win every state in a landslide, despite that, Democrats are now running to the New York Times and admitting that, oh yeah, we have a polling lead in Wisconsin, but we don't trust it. Yeah, that's what they're saying to the New York Times. This isn't Fox News. This isn't some far-right news outlet. This is from the New York Times, far from a far-right outlet. So let's read what they have to say, because when you actually read what the New York Times is reporting, you realize quickly that, oh, wait a minute, the Democrats, the last 40 public polls included in the New York Times polling average of the vital battleground states show her leading in 28, tied in 4, and trailing Trump in 8. Ms. Harris, who's set to hold a rally in Madison on Friday evening, was up by 4 percentage points in the latest survey from Marquette Law School, widely considered the gold standard of Wisconsin polling. Well, that's your first problem. Marquette is not the gold standard, and they're correct that, yeah, they have her up by 4, but to say that they're the gold standard of Wisconsin polling is just false. Look back at 2020. Marquette's final poll was Biden plus 5. Yeah, not Biden plus 1, not plus 2. It was a plus 5 lead for Biden. And it was consistent. In early October, it was the same margin. In early September, it was Biden plus 4. So to say that they're the gold standard of Wisconsin polling is complete bullshit. And the same thing happened back in 2016. Their final poll was Clinton plus 6. Is this really the gold standard? Are they better than some other pollsters? Yeah, but that just means Marquette's a less shitty poll than ABC News or YouGov, where they had Biden up by 12 and 17 points back in 2020. Remember that? The ABC News, their final poll in Wisconsin was Biden plus 17. So yeah, it's better than that, but they're not the gold standard. They're not. In fact, there's other pollsters that are way more accurate that they're not considered the gold standard. Like, look at the final polling average in Wisconsin. The most accurate pollster in Wisconsin back in 2020 was Trafalgar. So, if you're going to call Marquette the gold standard of Wisconsin polling, what do you call Trafalgar? Or even Susquehanna? What do you call them? They were off by only 2 points. Actually, Trafalgar was spot on. They had it Biden plus 1. He won by just under a point. That is perfection. Marquette, meanwhile, they're the gold standard, even though they're off by 4 points, which I know there's a margin of error, but still, it's like, you're off by 4. That's your gold standard? Being off by 4 points? But fine, Marquette is better than ABC News, they're better than maybe YouGov. We'll give them that. They're better than other pollsters, but that's not really saying much. And yet, in what has appeared to be the Democrats' strongest battleground state, even when President Biden was still in the race, Democrats, Republicans, and even the state's pollsters can agree on one thing. They don't fully trust the polling and don't believe Ms. Harris is ahead by as much as some of the surveys say. Oof, that's all I gotta say to that. I mean, if they're admitting that, yeah, Democrats, Republicans, and even Marquette, yeah, Marquette, the gold standard of Wisconsin polling, they admit to the New York Times, we don't trust these numbers. Huh? Wait, hold up, what? You're telling me that you polled Wisconsin, you're the gold standard, yet you don't trust your own numbers? For starters, if you don't trust the result, why release it? If you believe that you're missing some voters, why not contact those voters? Why? Why don't you do that? Instead, they just release the poll as is. Like, oh, well, the poll's be off by a couple points, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Why? If you know that your numbers are off, why release it? Again, it's one thing if it's off by a point, that's nothing. But if you're admitting that your Harris plus 4 is not going to happen, it's going to be within a point, why release the poll? Why not continue the survey for a couple more days? Like, okay, we believe we're missing some Trump voters. Let's poll for an extra 2 days. Get like 500 more responses, and that's it. And we'll see what happens after that. Instead, they just say, well, it's done. Release the poll as is, Harris +4. And if you do that, just make a statement in your poll saying, hey, we believe this survey could be overstating Harris's support by just a little bit. But instead, they don't even do that. They run to the New York Times like 2 weeks after the fact, and they're trying to cover for themselves. They're trying to say, well, this survey could be wrong. Then why don't you say in your own poll, yeah, we believe that we're understating Trump by a little bit. That's all you have to say. But instead, they're covering for themselves a week after the fact by going to the New York Times and saying, yeah, we think that this is going to be a much closer race than our polling suggests. Then why release the poll? I'm being dead serious when I ask that, because why release it? That's like saying, you know, your numbers suck, but we're not going to mention that in the poll. We're just going to say that 3 weeks after the fact, after all the narratives are built around Wisconsin. And that's what happened here. After that Marquette +4 for Harris came out, they immediately said the gold standard of Wisconsin polling has Harris up by 4. But 4 weeks after the fact, oh yeah, by the way, the pollster doesn't even believe his own numbers. Wow, that is unbelievable. I didn't read that part. I didn't realize that he admitted that, oh yeah, we don't believe our own numbers. We think we're being too bullish on Harris. Why? Why release the numbers then? Even though the Democratic Party and its allied candidates have won 12 of the last 15 statewide elections in Wisconsin, there remains a widespread sense that polling data should be viewed skeptically, and that voters who support Mr. Trump are quietly waiting to vote in large numbers. Yeah, this is the bombshell that took everyone by complete surprise. The New York Times is admitting that there are a bunch of voters that have never voted, right? They quietly support Trump, and they're going to vote on election day. And for those that are saying, well, that's just the New York Times, they could have a Republican bias somehow. Well, look at this. Sarah Goldowski, a Democrat that's the Wisconsin Secretary of State, said the voters that Donald Trump is going to turn out are going to be first-time voters that we have no data on and don't even know about. You can't pull people that you don't even know about. Yeah. This comes from the Wisconsin Secretary of State, who's a Democrat, by the way. This isn't a Republican saying this. This isn't some Republican pollster. This is the Wisconsin Secretary of State, who's a Democrat, by the way, admitting that, yeah, we have a small lead in the polls, but in reality, Trump's voters are people that we don't even poll. They don't vote. This is the first election they're ever going to vote in. I just find it ironic that they're admitting now that they're just not polling first-time voters. They're not. They're only polling people that have voted in every single election. And this, to me, confirms the idea that we are going to see a big polling miss in 2024. Because if they're admitting that they're not even polling first-time voters, like, listen, I can understand not believing that you're going to see a record amount of first-time voters. I get that. But if you're admitting that, oh yeah, we're just not polling any of these people, well, you're missing a large chunk of the electorate, and these people break for Trump by ridiculous margins, and they know that. Makes you really wonder, why are they not polling them? If you know there's going to be a bunch of first-time voters this election that are going to break for Trump, shouldn't you try to poll them? Now, granted, not all of them are going to break for Trump. Hell, not all of them are going to vote for him. But at the bare minimum, can't you make some kind of effort with these voters? Like, okay, let's poll them. Let's see what they have to say. But if they're just not polling them, that could explain how Marquette found Harris up by 4. And that's what they said earlier. That, yeah, well, we don't believe our own numbers. If they know they're missing these voters, why release the poll? Why not try to poll these people? Why? Why are they making a big deal about not polling any of them? And what do you mean you can't poll people you don't know about? You know about these people. They're in the voter file. They have not voted yet, but they're registered voters now. At least make an effort. Ask them, are you going to vote? How likely are you going to vote? you know, are you going to vote for Trump? Are you going to vote for Harris? Who are you going to vote for? That's all you have to do. This idea that you can't poll them is complete bullshit. Yes, it's harder to reach them, I'm not denying that, but to say that you have nothing on these people is false. If they're registered to vote, you have information on them, you have demographic data on them. So why can't you poll them? Why? Because they haven't voted yet? Okay, that makes them less likely to vote this time, I get that, but if they're saying they're very likely to vote, there's a good chance they're gonna vote. And if this is the case that they're just not polling these people, we are gonna see a big polling miss. We will. Now, is it gonna be a 6-point miss like 2020 or what was it in 2016? Oh yeah, a 7-point miss. No. But even if it's a 4 to 5 point miss, even a 2-point miss, that's a Trump win in Wisconsin. And now it begins to make sense why they're admitting to the New York Times that we don't believe our own numbers. Because they even realize that these polls, they're not reaching the people that don't vote, but in 2024, for the first time ever, they're going to vote. And they're going to vote for Trump by a huge amount. They're going to break for Trump by like 50 points or something crazy like that. They're not reaching these voters. And not even 2 weeks ago, by the way, the Harris campaign ran to CNN and they admitted that they looked cooked in places like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona. Think about that. A week ago, they were saying we're done in these states, but now they're saying that, oh yeah, Wisconsin, we don't even believe the polls in. Which makes you really wonder, but you don't believe a Harris +1? That's what most polls are showing, Harris +1, Harris +2, which, by the way, is a big improvement from 2020. When everyone was saying Harris or Biden +8, Biden +7, +5, +6. They don't even believe a Harris +2, a Harris +4 even. They don't believe it. Now, that doesn't mean Harris is going to lose Wisconsin for sure, but it should make people skeptical about this idea that she's really up by 5 points everywhere. If she doesn't even believe her own numbers in Wisconsin, do you think she's really up by 4 points like Marquette is saying? No. It's probably going to be within a point. It could be much more, I guess, but if you're the Harris campaign, why run to the New York Times and admit that you don't believe your own numbers? Why admit that, oh yeah, these polls are not pulling any new voters. They're just pulling people that vote in every single election. Why? If you're the Harris campaign, this is not a good look for you. If you have Democrats openly admitting that, yeah, we're not pulling people that are first-time voters, that we know they're going to break for Trump, why admit that? If you're really up by 6 points in Wisconsin, like some people are claiming, why admit this? Because in reality, they're not up by 6 in Wisconsin. They might be winning, fine. But maybe by 1, maybe by 2, not by 4 or 5 points like Marquette's saying. And if that's the case, she's not in a good situation because what's to say that there's not another big polling miss? And they're not even telling you what her own numbers are showing. It could be Harris +3, maybe, but it doesn't seem like they admit to where they're at roughly. They're not saying we're up by a couple points. They're just saying we don't believe the polling. We believe the race is neck and neck. That's all they're saying. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.